What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to episode 14 of the Silver and Gold. I'm Josh.
And I'm Mike.
And today we're going to be recapping a very exciting week 3. Although it was very exciting for, a lot of teams, it wasn't exciting for some teams. And unfortunately for you Raider fans who are watching at home, I don't think it was very exciting. But, we'll talk about that when we get to it. But first, we're going to go ahead and jump into our 49ers versus Giants week 3 recap. So, the game feels like forever ago at this point now. The Niners and Giants played Thursday night football, and I've had a couple days to really dissect it. Not dissect it, but digest it. And it's sort of sitting in sitting in my gut. Like, the Niners went out there and they won the football game, and there's not really much more that I can ask for. I think we were expecting the Niners to maybe come out with a little bit more energy, but you can't really predict the energy level of Thursday night football games because the Niners played the Rams the week prior, and it was a pretty close game for most of the game. Ended out being like just a 7-point victory for the Niners over the Rams. And, guys get banged up, guys get hurt. Brandon Ayuk didn't play versus the Giants. And I'm really glad the Niners were able to rest Brandon Ayuk. I don't think it was worth trotting him out there and risking him getting injured. And other guys were able to step up, like Ronnie Bell caught a touchdown. So, the offensive production was still there. I thought, while watching this game, I thought that this might have been Purdy's, maybe, his least strongest effort. Like, I didn't think it was his best game. And, the Purdy effect, we still ended up with 30 points. Like, here's what I'll say. Purdy threw a dime to Deebo Samuel for a touchdown on the right side. It was like a front pylon throw, like a fade to Deebo. And, it was a great throw, great catch. And, like when I say that Purdy had his struggles, honestly, he really just struggled. I would say the first drive was bad. Like it was genuinely a bad drive from Purdy. I think I counted, while I was watching it live, there were 3 throws that I swear could have been intercepted and probably should have been intercepted. And on one of them, Kittle even had to essentially play defensive back and knock it out of the defender's hands. But after that, Purdy sort of settled in and got better as the game went along. And really, that's all I can ask for out of Brock. Just to when you face a little bit of adversity, what's he going to do? Is he going to shrink and devolve into, what we've seen in the past with Nick Mullins and other quarterbacks where it just goes from bad to worse and you just can't recover from it? Or are we going to see a guy who's going to, bounce back and be able to make the other team pay for it? And I think Purdy did a good job in the rest of the game. I didn't think that his, the first half was the strongest, but it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. And I didn't get a chance to watch the film or anything. So take his struggling, me saying he was struggling with maybe a little bit of grain of salt because maybe guys just weren't open, and maybe the pass rush was maybe pressuring him a little bit. But Mike, go ahead and tell me your thoughts. Like, what did you think about that Thursday night game?
Well, like you said, it feels like it was so long ago. I honestly don't really remember much from it, just because, on the outside looking in. From what I remember, I want to say McCaffrey had a really good game.
Oh, yeah. Fuck yeah, he did.
Yeah. I think Trent Williams threw a punch that possibly should have gotten him ejected, but I saw that the other guy punched him first, so maybe it was just fair game.
By rule, both should have been ejected, but I think it's probably good for the NFL that they both weren't, and it was just offsetting, and they were both able to continue playing. But it's just a little interesting when the NFL picks and chooses who they eject. Like, the week before, Deshaun Watson pushed an official and he should have been ejected, and he wasn't. So, they pick and choose.
Yeah. But I mean, at the end of the day, it was just actually, I was going to say it was a dominant win, but it really wasn't. And okay. Well, first off, like, now that I'm thinking about it more, the game was like what? You guys had an 8-point lead, like, going into, or maybe throughout most of the fourth quarter, until you guys maybe scored another touchdown or something. I just remember you guys having an 8-point lead for a long time in the game, and that wasn't expected. It was expected, with the O-line injuries for the Giants and Saquon being out, and just seeing how Daniel Jones was getting pressured. Like, I expected this game to be like, 34-3.
You are
Something like
correct,
that.
by the way. The Niners were up 20-12 going into the fourth.
Yeah.
And the final score ended out being 30-12. So,
yeah. So, I mean, they ended up separating, but I mean, through the fourth quarter, the Giants were within one possession of this Niners team. That's not exactly expected, nor ideal, nor
they had no business being in the same stratosphere as the Niners.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to like really spark up this conversation again. Basically, the way I look at football most of the time is, the any given Sunday sort of feel. Anything can happen, and like, usually the thing that should happen happens, but maybe not in the way that you expect. So, like, okay, we thought the Niners are going to win. Yes, they did, but we thought they should have won by 20 plus. And like I said, 8 points going into the fourth quarter, maybe mid fourth quarter. I don't know. And that's unexpected. The conversation that I'm kind of trying to bring up here is, a week ago you were saying that if the Chiefs walked into the Niners' house, or just faced the Niners, you guys would undeniably demolish them. And I said, I don't know about that. This game is why, why I said that. Like, I do think that you guys probably have the best roster in football, at least starting wise. The starters, the top end of the roster. But do I think that any given Sunday the Chiefs face the Niners and lose every single time? No way. Do I think that 9 times out of 10 the Niners should beat them? Sure, I could say that, but as long as they have Mahomes and Kelsey, I'm probably going to lean 50-50, Like, that's kind of where my mindset was, and I don't think I really fully explained it last time. I just said, no, I kind of disagree, when you said, like, we would demolish the Chiefs right now, the Niners, And I, like, this game kind of better explains how I feel of just any given Sunday, anything could happen. The fucking Giants could be within one score in the fourth quarter against this Niners team. Do I think that the Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes would do the same thing? No, I think they'd be a little better, but it could be a different game. It could be, I mean, the game plans matter, the way that, the coaching goes and rolls out. And so, and a lot of the times I noticed, unless you're watching the Dolphins versus the Broncos, usually teams play down to their opponents. There have been some games where it's complete blowouts, like the Eagles game tonight or the Bills game this weekend and so forth. But, I mean, that was just a little tangent. But
yeah, I mean, for those of you at home who don't know, the Dolphins put up 70 points against the against the Denver Broncos, and that final score ended up being 70-20. So like, Niner fans, I think we feel pretty good getting 30 points every week, but the Broncos Mike McDaniel just went out there and said, you know what, fuck that, I'm gonna double that and then some.
Yeah, they score, or they broke the record for most yardage in a single game offensively.
Yeah, they had 10
726
touchdowns
yards.
too.
Yeah. All they needed was a field goal, and they would have had the highest scoring offense ever in a single game.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I
Now
think
there's a team I'm not
obviously,
confident that the Niners would just go and I would feel confident with them beating. I still stand by what I said against the Chiefs because at the end of the day, I still feel like the Chiefs are Mahomes, Kelsey, Andy Reid, and Chris Jones. And at the end of the day, I think you're going to need more to beat this iteration of the 49ers with Brock Purdy at the helm.
yeah, I just think when you pair those 4 players, or 3 players plus specifically Andy Reid, anything is possible. As long as Andy Reid and Mahomes are together, I think anything is possible. I think Travis Kelsey is a huge reason why their offense is as successful as it is. But yeah, I mean, as far as the Dolphins, yeah, right now they are one of the top 5 teams undeniably.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not even at full health. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, back to the Niners versus Giants. It just, although it was close, like even, I mean, my thing was if the Giants scored a touchdown and made it a 2-point difference, like I wasn't confident they were going to get a 2-point conversion. Like it even though it was a 1 possession game, it always felt like they were far away.
Mm-hmm. It felt like a gentleman's ass whooping.
Yeah, essentially. But I mean, other than that, I don't really remember anything else that was major. I thought the rookie, the 7th rounder, the receiver looked good, number 10.
Ronnie Bell.
Yeah. I feel like Purdy might have thrown 1 or 2 passes that could have been picked but weren't, something like that. I could be wrong.
Oh,
Maybe that was last week.
On the first drive, I felt like he threw 3 of those passes.
Yeah.
But they weren't picked, so
Yeah. But
can't hold it against him. Well, I mean, I guess you could. Like on film, definitely Kyle Shanahan's going to be like, this needs to improve. You can't be doing that.
I think, unless I'm mistaken, I feel like George Kittle kind of ate because Ayuk was out. I think he got like maybe north of 5 catches for like 70 yards or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I could be wrong. That's really all I can remember from the game because it's from Thursday.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the game was far away, and you mentioned Kittle. Eating. I think what's funny is I was watching Grant Cohn's like post game like recap of or his instant reaction to the the game, and he was talking about, or it might have been on his grades, but he gave George Kittle a pretty good grade and said, it really seems like the 49ers try and save Kittle, like they pace him, to the end of the season. But when it comes to playing in prime time, Kittle's a performer.
Yeah.
Like Kittle wants to put on a show. And when he knows that the whole world is watching, he's going to put on a show. And I just think it's like, it's one of those things that's kind of interesting to think about. Like, Kittle is sort of like a wrestling, fanatic, right? And it's like well known. It's like widespread. Like Kittle, you could probably see, if he retired today and said, I'm actually going to join the WWE. Like, would you be shocked?
Right.
You know what I mean? If they threw money his way, and like that might be one of his dreams too. He really likes wrestling, and he plays like a wrestler. So maybe he just really likes the brightest stages and the bright lights.
Yeah, no, that sounds about right to me.
Yeah. But the Giants essentially the Niners against the Giants, it was so impressive that Jed York went ahead and extended John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan's contracts. So I don't think that the exact details of the extensions have been, laid out, but essentially Ian Rappaport on Twitter, and I mean, maybe somebody else broke the news first, but could have been Schefter, could have been Pelissero, somebody essentially said that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan have received multi-year extensions to their contract, and so they will be here for long term. It seems like, and the foreseeable future. I already feel like they were already going to be here for the foreseeable future, but it sounds like their deals will be expiring now at around the same time. And
that makes sense.
Shanahan already got extended after 2019, after losing the Super Bowl. And, there's nothing really wrong with anything that John Lynch has done and Shanahan has done. I actually really like John Lynch, and, Kyle Shanahan, I have mixed feelings about because, I just sort of feel like at the end of the day, you have the best roster in football and you are one of the best offensive minds in football, or at least you're supposed to be. At the end of the day, just get it done. Just win the damn Super Bowl. And when I heard the news about the extensions, I had mixed feelings about it, really, because we're in year 7 and there's still no ring on Shanahan's finger. Jed York still doesn't have a ring. And I'm just sort of trying to think, man, would a good owner do this? Would they reward essentially not rewarding first place? You know what I mean? You want to be setting, the high bar of we want the best. And I feel like Jed York, he did it in the past with Harbaugh, but I feel like there was more going on behind the scenes where Harbaugh didn't respect York, and York sort of pictured it as, we only hang Super Bowl banners. And then, he got us on that. It ended up looking like a mistake that they got rid of Harbaugh. So I think he's trying to not make the same mistake. And so he's giving Shanahan and Lynch, job security. And, I get it. It makes sense. At the end of the day, it's like this roster is not going to get any younger. So they need to win now. And winning now would solve a whole lot of the problems that a bunch of fans have with Shanahan, including myself. It's like, really, if he just went out there and won the big fucking game, I really wouldn't complain. I really wouldn't. Just go out and do it. You've done everything else but that. And I've been waiting my whole life to watch the Niners win a Super Bowl. I haven't had that opportunity. I'm not getting any younger, although I am young. Don't delay finding a new coach because you don't think somebody else is going to be out there. Because, I mean, just look, Mike McDaniel has been the head coach of the Miami Dolphins for last year was his first head coaching season. This year, they're undefeated, as well as the Niners, to the Niners' credit. Other teams, like the Eagles, Nick Sirianni is in year 3, and he already took his team to the Super Bowl and actually knocked the Niners out of the playoffs last year. It's like you can find guys that are good just because you feel like Shanahan might be the best. I mean, I'm trying not to, say something stupid here or, have it sound stupid. Shanahan may be the best offensive mind in the league, but at the end of the day, you need somebody who is going to get you from point A to point B, and Shanahan still has not proven that he is going to lead the 49ers across the finish line. And maybe he will, and I'm hoping he will, and I'm thinking that if it has to be this year or next year. So you definitely want to keep him on the team, for those 2 years. But to extend him long term, I don't know if it's the right answer, and I can't tell you if it's the wrong answer, but we will for sure find out.
Yeah, I mean, I think a big question is how many more years were they under contract prior to this extension? Like, was this their final year under contract? I don't think we know.
I think, okay, so Shanahan, I believe, signed a 6-year extension after 2019. So I don't know if it was extending what he already had previously, and this is an extension on the extension. Like, I don't know. So let's just say Shanahan had at least 6 years left on his deal that he signed in 2019. So let's just say 2020, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 2025 would technically be his last season. Like, I don't know what, like, I guess the timing is just like weird to me. Like, all right, you beat the Giants on Thursday Night Football, and then all of a sudden you get rewarded. Like, you're supposed to
Well,
beat the Giants.
yeah, I don't think it's because of the Giants game. I think it's been something that they had been working on for weeks, if not months, maybe. I think, well, for one thing, I think he's probably a close second because I can't think of anybody else other than Andy Reid, but I think Andy Reid is the number one offensive mind in football. But having, the close second is not a bad thing, that's for sure. And then also, as far as this
I agree
goes,
with
I
Andy
think,
Reid being better.
yeah, as far as this goes, though, I there's nobody else out there that is a better option for the Niners than Kyle Shanahan. And I know in 2 or 3 years
I
that could
agree.
change. That could absolutely change in 2 or 3 years. But I think they probably want, as long as Purdy works out, they probably want Shanahan and Purdy, once Purdy gets extended in 2 years, 3 years, whatever it will be. I think 2 years. They want it to be them two kind of leading the ship with Lynch, and then whoever else can financially stay. It probably won't be Trent Williams at that point. It might not be McCaffrey at that point. Maybe Debo gets traded at that point. Kittle is probably gone by that point. I mean, I'd have to see how their contracts look, but you also just have to bear in mind, like, once you resign a quarterback, like, you already have Boza on the books. I like we've kind of talked about before. I don't think you can keep both Ayuk and Debo. Um,
I'm keeping
and
Ayuk. Give me
yeah,
Ayuk over Debo.
yeah. So, um, but yeah, I just think this. Oh, I wouldn't say this is a no-brainer. I'm curious what it was before, like where they were at, contractually. Like it makes sense to me if, like you said, it's like, oh, John Lynch was going to, his contract was going to expire at the end of this year, so they gave him a 3-year extension, and they gave Shanahan a 1-year extension, so that they both run out at the same time. That
Mm.
makes sense. Now, it obviously doesn't make sense to me for it to be like an 8-year and a 10-year extension. Like, it's got to be something like around 3 to 5 years, if I had to guess.
Yeah, you and me both know that 10-year contracts don't work out for coaches. We've seen that,
Yeah.
or at least in recent memory.
Yeah. I but I think, this is a window for the Niners, and they definitely want them to be here for it. And like, I get the whole, like, oh, I don't reward second place or whatever, but it's like, I mean, they have gotten you to a Super Bowl. And this team, it feels like as good a chance as any in the past 3 years, if not the best chance to make the Super Bowl this year.
Mm-hmm.
Based off the roster construction and how consistent Brock Purdy has been. Um, so
Yeah.
yeah, it makes
Um,
sense to me.
one thing I'll say is there are definitely always interesting names that, like, come up. Like, I remember Shane Steichen was an interesting name to come out of last year's, like, I don't know if you want to call it the coaching carousel, right? The revolving door where, coaches like go and they get, they swap around, whether it be like a different position elsewhere, or, being promoted to a head coach, somewhere else, right? Or being hired as the head coach somewhere else. Right now, currently in the AFC South, Shane Steichen is in first place at 2-1, and his star quarterback, or his guy that he thinks is going to be the franchise quarterback going forward, because he spent his first round pick on him, has only played like maybe half of the games or less, right? He got knocked out of like the first game, like in the fourth quarter, and then played like maybe the first quarter of the second game. Yeah, so he's played less than half. And then the Colts are current. I mean, it's really early in the season, but they're currently sitting at 2-1. So it just goes to show that like nobody knew who Shane Steichen was, except for maybe Eagles fans and other people who pay close attention to personnel in football. But there are always talented guys. Like Eric Bieniemy could be the next, like, really strong candidate to be a head coach, because I mean, he looked pretty good against the Broncos. Like that offense put up a good number of points. I'm forgetting who Washington played this past week, but Bieniemy won 2 Super Bowls with Kansas City. So it'll be interesting to see if he is one of the coaches that gets hired next year. But I think that's all really I had to say about Lynch and Shanahan getting extended, except for maybe one other thing would be, what does this mean for Adam Peters? Because Adam Peters declined to interview for the Titans GM job. And for those of you who don't know, Adam Peters is the assistant general manager for the 49ers. And, he declined the interview because there was speculation that John Lynch might be returning to the booth to go, be an announcer. And Adam Peters might actually step in to the general manager position role. So I don't know if it means that Adam Peters might go somewhere next year, but it definitely could be something to keep an eye on. But another thing that we're ready to keep an eye on as we move on is the 49ers versus Cardinals week 4 preview. So it is at Levi Stadium. The 49ers are going to have their second home game in a row. And the Cardinals are coming off of an upset win against the Cowboys. And, really, I didn't watch the game. I didn't have an opportunity to really watch that game. But I don't see the Niners having a big, I guess, I don't see them being upset by the Cardinals. Maybe it might be a close game because it's a divisional game, and those games are typically like, you don't know. But I really don't have any faith in Jonathan Gannon as a head coach. I really think that he is going to be the first coach who gets fired this season. Well, no, not the first coach who gets fired this season, because there are other situations where maybe there are better coaches who are on the hot seat currently. But I just think that Jonathan Gannon might be one of the worst head coaches in the NFL. And maybe he might prove me wrong, and this will be one of those takes that ages very poorly. But he just, I don't know, he strikes me as somebody who's very awkward. And Mike, you saw the video of Jonathan Gannon talking to his team, right? Like, did you see that one? He's like, I need killers. And they're like all looking at him, and it looks like an episode of The Office.
Yeah. I mean, he comes off like uninspired and stuff, but at the same time, from my point of view, I see 3 weeks of a team who is expected, like fully expected without Kyler Murray, to get the first overall pick, and they're going out there and winning first halves and then just outright beating the Cowboys, who a week ago everybody was saying was a top 3 team in the league. Maybe not everybody, but a lot of people. So I think that this is a guy that these players are playing hard for, and I really think they don't have a very good roster. So the fact that they can go out there and do what they're doing tells me that they're doing something right as far as coaching is concerned. Um, but again, going back to that video that you're talking about, yeah, he doesn't seem like the most inspiring guy, but maybe he's really good with X's and O's, and he put together a really good coaching staff to surround the team.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't see it with him. And, like I said, I could be wrong, but, Shanahan's he's been, I mean, Shanahan has struggled against the Cardinals in the past, but that was with Cliff Kingsbury. For whatever reason, Cliff Kingsbury would find a way to give Shanahan some problems, except for like last year. Like I witnessed Colt McCoy go and smack the 49ers in, I want to say it was week 7, 2021. I was there. I was sitting in the end zone, and I was like, damn, this, you know, I thought for sure the Niners had that game in the bag, but they fucking blew it. And I was like yelling. I was like, I was yelling at Shanahan and starting chants like, play Trey Lance. And then this guy who was sitting like a couple seats over, I think I told you this story, Mike, but for those of you at home, he's like, he said something about like, God, what did he say? I'm blanking, but he was like, Jimmy doesn't play defense. And I was like, we need points, right? Like we only had like 7 points up to that point, or like we were getting dogged. And I was like, if you're not going to fucking put up points, at least develop your first round pick. Like, the guy who at the time was supposed to take over. Like, I don't know. That was a crazy game. I had a lot of fun, even though the game was like awful on the field. But going back to this matchup on Sunday, the Niners are just too stacked to lose to a team like the Cardinals. I don't see it happening. I could see, obviously because it happened, I could see the Cowboys losing to the Cardinals. Like, it's the thing about, like, one thing that you said was like the Cardinals have put up good amounts of points in the first half. When there's a brand new head coach on teams, one common theme that I've noticed, and maybe the numbers historically, go against what I'm about to say, but when there's a brand new head coach, they typically will get off to a hot start in the game. Like you mentioned yesterday, or not yesterday, but in some of the previous episodes, that Josh McDaniels' teams would they would get out to a lead and then blow it, like 2-score leads, and then they would blow it. Um, uh, Hold on, lost my train of thought. New coaches, there's not a lot of film on them, like, to begin with, especially brand new ones, right? Like if you get a guy who's going from one system to another, like maybe it's like a lateral move, or maybe it was like a head coach somewhere else, or it's been a long period of time since they were a head coach, you get sort of an idea on what they're going to do. Like Josh McDaniels, yes, he was like in the league for like a good amount. He's been in the league for like 20 years at least. He's spent a lot of time with the Patriots, so there's a lot of film on his system. But common theme, brand new head coaches, new system, new personnel, you don't know what to expect, and it's really hard to prepare. So that's why other teams struggle at first. And then the Cowboys, I don't know how that game went, but they just could never recover. Um, yeah. So yeah, I feel like Christian McCaffrey is going to have another big game. You can still hear me, right, Mike? Okay. Christian McCaffrey is going to have another big day. I wonder if Brandon Ayuk is going to be able to play in this game, and that'll definitely be something to look at. I think that given that he'll be on 14 days rest is definitely a good thing for him. But we'll see the severity of his injury. Um, if Ayuk isn't able to go, then maybe Debo might have another solid day, and Kittle will pick up some of that load. What were you going to say, Mike?
I was just gonna say I could see them giving Ayuk one more week to rest and get ready for the Dallas game.
Mm-hmm.
But that's if they feel like overestimating the Cardinals, And of course, if they really feel that he needs it,
You mean underestimating the Cardinals?
Yeah. Like I in the sense of like if he doesn't need the rest, but they feel like, oh, let's give you one more week so that you're really ready, like for sure ready. Like maybe he's just like on the fence, really, still hurting a little bit, but like it's nothing that might be at risk of getting re-injured or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um but it could be like, well, we could just sit you and give you one more week, and then when come Dallas, it's like you're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
Full health.
This Cardinals game, like the only thing I would be concerned about is like I mentioned just a couple moments ago, it's the unknown with a new coach. Josh Dobbs, I feel like I'm pretty sure he's going to be the one starting on Sunday. But Josh Dobbs, when I've seen him run, the Niners have had trouble containing mobile quarterbacks, and Josh Dobbs runs pretty aggressively. Like excuse me, he runs like how, I mean, I don't want to compare him to Steve Young, but just the way Steve Young would run, he wouldn't run scared. Josh Dobbs runs, at least from I've seen a couple plays where he just runs kind of fearlessly, and if he runs fearlessly, he's going to get hit and he's going to get tagged by one of the linebackers, by one of the safeties. But I'm just wondering if there's going to be a big penalty from Dre Greenlaw, maybe hitting a guy kind of late while he's sliding. I don't know, but I'm definitely curious to see the measuring stick of Josh Dobbs versus this Niner team. Because we really haven't seen a lot of him like against starting talent in the NFL.
Josh Dobbs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, his best his best competition has been Dallas last week. So I'm curious to see if he can continue playing winning football. It seemed like a lot of it was on James Conner's shoulders for the Cardinals, and you know I think this Niners defense won't let that happen.
Mm-hmm. I
Or at
would
least
love to
they
see.
certainly shouldn't.
I would love to see Nick Bosa get like an actual sack, because I didn't mention it in the Giants game recap, but Nick Bosa got his first sack of the season in week 1, and he went completely untouched. And he definitely had an impact on the game. He was like getting to the quarterback. It's just, uh, good teams will, well, Giants aren't a good team, but good teams and scared teams will get the ball out quickly. And I feel like Daniel Jones was absolutely scared. Did you see the clip of the way that he was looking at the Niner defense, and he just like, he looked like he looked like his whole family went out for ice cream and didn't invite him or get him any ice cream. Like that's exactly the look he was given. He was like so fucking scared. I don't know, but my prediction is that Kyle Shanahan will have the 49ers prepared, and maybe the score might be close, but I really see the Niners pulling this one out. And the Cardinals have no business beating a team that is as talented as the 49ers, so long as everybody, plays a clean game, stays healthy. But, there's been crazier upsets. So I'm picking the Niners. Mike, what's your pick?
Yeah, I'm picking the Niners. There's no debate. I mean, unless the Niners go out there slow and mistake ridden, and the Cardinals are just riding an insane high coming off the Cowboys game, and play really good. But no, I mean, if I'm picking, it's easily the Niners. And is this at home? I can't hear you.
It is at home. Sorry.
Okay, you're good. Yeah,
Yeah.
at home they're not losing. They're not losing to
Yeah.
the Cardinals.
And if they did, guess who's about to have a fucking meltdown next week? This guy. No, I'm just playing. Yeah, Niners are going to take care of business. And, hopefully that gives them good momentum going into the Dallas game. Because I'm telling you, if the Niners do not pull out this Cardinals game, Dallas almost looks like a must win if you're going to want to pursue that 1 seed and get that first round bye.
Yeah, I mean, right now there's 3 undefeated teams: the Dolphins in the AFC, and then it's the Niners and the Eagles in the NFC.
Eagles don't look as good as they did last year. They still have great players. They have a great team, but I'm telling you, Super Bowl hangover is leaning over them, or is looming over them.
Yeah, but I mean, the fact that they're 3-0 while having Super Bowl hangover, I mean that should subside if Super Bowl hangover is a thing. I think they're only going to get better as the season goes on, and they're only going to get healthier. And obviously in the NFC, I find them to be your biggest threat, and then the Cowboys. And I mean, the Seahawks don't look as good as they were last year. And I'm honestly struggling to find another NFC team right now.
The Rams. How about the Rams?
Yeah, let me see. Let me look at the game.
Did they win tonight?
It's apparently. Oh my good God!
Not the Rams. Not the Rams.
No, well the Bengals are up 19-9 with 6 minutes left. So I mean they're still in it, but I'm just saying, good God, because Enrique's kicker scored 20.
Jesus.
Yeah. I mean the Rams are interesting, but I don't fully see it with them. Like I'm talking like realistic, like NFC Championship, threats to the Niners. It's the Eagles, it's the Cowboys. I don't see anybody else in your division. From the North,
maybe the Lions, but probably
maybe the
not.
Lions. Yeah, but right now, not so much. But they can get hot.
Yeah, if they do what Dan Campbell says and bite kneecaps off, definitely wouldn't be good for anybody.
Yeah, but the Vikings are 0-3, and their defense is trash. And then the Packers are like interesting, but they're not a threat. The last team I can think of is the Saints, but they're not nearly as good. I would even say as the Lions. Maybe they are, but I don't think so. I think they're a step below them. I think it should be Niners, Eagles, Lions, Saints, Cowboys. Those are your top 5 teams that are
not in that
fighting.
Order.
Well, when come playoffs, I think the Eagles will outlast the Cowboys on the regular season. So I'm saying like that will be the seeding if I had to guess.
Oh, okay. So you said Niners first, or
Niners, Eagles.
Okay,
but that could depend.
I missed the whole Niners thing in your list, and I was like, I thought you were naming threats.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was naming threats. I would rank them Niners, Eagles, Cowboys. It's really close between the Lions and Saints.
I really like it. You know what? Yeah, Niners are at the top of that list because the biggest threat to the Niners is them fucking selves.
Yeah.
I like it.
But what I was kind of trying to get at is, if you look at it from the Cowboys' perspective and also the Eagles, when they face the Niners this season, it is probably an even bigger game. Specifically, the Cowboys game. It's a bigger game for the Cowboys than it is for the Niners. Because if the Cowboys can beat the Niners, they can have that on them later when it comes down to the wire in the race for like the 1 or 2 seed. If it were to come down to it. But giving them that loss while also getting yourself a win, the Cowboys, is huge. And the past 2, maybe 3 years, the Niners have been the team that have ended their seasons. So they might come in with, some of those feelings. And then what the game that really interests me, of course, is Niners Eagles, which is happening this year, right?
I believe it's week 13.
Okay, yeah. So that's dead in the heat of the end of the season, regular season, race for the playoffs. That should be a huge game for playoff seeding, and home field advantage. So, but as far as the Cardinals game, yeah, it's Niners all the way.
Yep. We're ready to move on, I believe, to the Raiders versus Steelers week 3 recap. Mike, I'm going to go ahead and let you take the floor. I feel like I have a lot to say on this. So, but I'll let you start off and then, you can sort of respond to everything that I said too.
Yeah. So the Raiders lost, I want to say 23-18.
Sounds about
I don't
right.
have the score in front of me, but it felt worse than the score. Yeah, it felt worse than the score even hints. And what it really came down to for me, and this was something that I said a week ago when previewing this game, and this is something that I said after the Broncos game that would be important for this team, is the turnover differential. And you might have caught my text message in the group chat, our fantasy group chat, in about probably the early third quarter. I said that the game was over when Jimmy G threw like his second interception of the game. Because I knew the Raiders were not going to get a turnover, and the Steelers were getting all of the turnovers in the game. And of course, they're scoring off of these turnovers. So, the turnover differential 100% flipped the game, and put it in the Steelers' favor from pretty early on. Once it was 7-7, it was like, okay, fair game. It's like, let's start this game right back over. And then Jimmy G throws an interception. And then the Steelers go score. And then at some point, I think in the third quarter, Jimmy G throws another interception. And I think at that point, they go up 23-7. And I'm like, this thing's over. I don't care what you say. And of course, with like 5 minutes left in the game, I started getting a little bit of hope. But it was very reluctant hope because I was like, we need to score 2-point conversions to win this, to tie this game. Maybe it was like 8 minutes left, but whatever. So I want to say it was 23-15. I think that math checks out. I don't know. And the Raiders had the ball on what would it have been, the like 35-yard line or something, and it was like 4th and 4, and we went for it, and we didn't.
The Raiders didn't have 15 at that point. The the Raiders had, I want to say they had 7.
Maybe it was 8. Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, it must have been 7.
Yeah, it was 7. It was 7 to
Yeah,
23.
that makes sense. Yeah, because then a field goal would have made us down 13. So then theoretically we could score 2 touchdowns without 2-point conversions and get the lead later on. So I should have took notes on like what the timestamps were and everything, but let's just say it was like 8 minutes left, 23-7, and the Raiders go for it on 4th down instead of kicking a field goal. It was like 4th and 4, and they don't get it. So then the Steelers get the ball, the Raiders stop them. Raiders get the ball, they march down, they get a touchdown, and they get the 2-point conversion, which got a little bit of help from a penalty, which was a correct penalty. Jacoby Myers getting held in the back corner of the end zone on the 2-point conversion. And then following play is, the wide open pass to Mayer. So now we're down 8 points with like, I think less than 5 minutes in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And the Steelers get the ball. We stop them again. And of course we get the ball. We start going down the field. And we get pitted into a 4th and whatever. And I think we go for the field goal attempt, and then they get the whatever you call that. Oh, the
Leverage.
penalty, which is so rarely called, and I was just like, "Are you kidding me? This game is insane." Yeah, this game's insane. How are they going to pull this off? No way, right? But they gifted it to us. So then it's like, all right, 1st down, here we go, and we find ourselves at 4th and 4 again, and I think this time it was like, maybe it was 4th and 5 on the 5-yard line, right? It was like 4th and goal, 4 or 5 yards out, and out trots Daniel Carlson. And with like 2.5 minutes left, and like 2 timeouts, maybe 3, maybe all. I think it was all 3. We had all 3 timeouts. Now, I have to admit, immediately when I saw Carlson go out there, I understood why. And I know a lot of people are thinking, no, like this makes no sense.
What changed? Agree.
No, nothing. They were just going to kick a field goal. They get the penalty, and then they go waste a minute and a half more, and then it's like, okay, same thing, just shorter distance to the goal line. They still kick a field goal. Why? Because they're down 8. Either way, they're down a touchdown. That sucks. But if they get the ball back, now they can win the game instead of hope to tie the game. Now, granted, you could get the touchdown and hope to tie the game. If you don't tie the game, you're down less than a field goal. And you could theoretically go and win it if you get the ball back. But I understood the thought process, but it was incorrect. I can say that. Because you should just, at that point, the likelihood that you're going to get the ball back, bear in mind you're not going to have timeouts, the likelihood that you're going to get the ball back and be able to go down and score a touchdown off of a punt is so low, especially with Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback. It was not ideal. I would have gone for the touchdown because, point being, okay, you go for the touchdown, you don't get it, right? You're in the same predicament as kicking the field goal because either way you're down a touchdown. But the difference is between kicking a field goal with Carlson, who will definitely make it unless it gets blocked, and missing a touchdown. is either way you need that touchdown. If you score the touchdown and you tie it, I mean that's the difference to me. It's like you can tie the game here if you just get the right throw or whatever it is, the right play call. But instead, it was like, let's kick the field goal and hope to get the ball back. Let's put it on our defensive shoulders one more time because we just got 2 straight drives of stopping the offense for the Steelers. But it was like all game before the fourth quarter, we couldn't stop them. I was just like, I mean, I'm sure you can tell right now, like my head's going back and forth on it. Like I do understand the thought process, but at the same time, it's like, man, I mean, that's tough. You had the opportunity right there. And also bear in mind, if you don't convert the touchdown, the Steelers offense is on the 4-yard line, pitted, and if you force them to punt, you might get the ball on the 50-yard line. Right? But instead you kick the field goal, you kick it off, they're automatically on the 25. And they're moving forward. So that right there is probably enough for me to say that that was the wrong decision to kick the field goal. And just the fact that no matter what, whether you kick the field goal or miss the touchdown, you need a touchdown following. The only difference that is in favor of the field goal is that because we were going to get it, and we did, if we get the ball back, and it's a lot of ifs, but if we get the ball back and we have enough time, a touchdown wins the game. No point conversion needed. Like we will likely win the game if we can go down and score a touchdown. But again, that's the massive if. Whereas if you have the ball on the 4, 5, 6, whatever yard line, and you throw it, probably to Devontae or Jacoby Myers, because those are the only guys that Jimmy Garoppolo throws to, you might get the touchdown. And then you can do whatever you want on that 2-yard line for the 2-point conversion and pray that it works. But again, the other thing in favor of going for the touchdown, and if you get it, if you don't get the 2-point conversion, you still have a chance to get the ball back and go kick a 55-yard field goal with your kicker that doesn't miss and win the game because you're only down 2. So, yeah, at the end of the day, it was not the correct decision. And really, what I couldn't help but think about was, well, fuck, dude. 2 drives ago, we went for it on 4th and 4 or whatever it was, and we didn't get it. And this was on like the 20-yard line when we could have kicked a field goal and made us down 13 or whatever the math would be. And then when we scored the eventual touchdown after that, we would have been down 6, right? I think.
Well,
yeah,
you would have been down 13, and then you would have
gone for the 1-point conversion.
Gone
so
for the
7
1
more
point.
points.
So 7 more points, and then
so be down 6.
Down 6.
So theoretically, and of course that would change the game completely. Maybe the Steelers play a little harder or whatever. I don't know. But if you're on the 4-yard line and it's 4th and 4, 4th and goal, and you're down 6 points, you're not kicking a field goal anymore, you know? So I couldn't help but think about the 4th down conversion attempt from 2 drives prior when we kicked that field goal at the end. I was like, that could have been that field goal, and then this is the touchdown opportunity, you know? Because I was sitting there like, oh, when they went for it on 4th down and they didn't get it, 2 drives prior, whatever you want to say, with like 8 minutes left in the game, down 7-23. I was like, you can kick a field goal and make it a 2-possession game. Whereas if you don't make this, it's a very hard 2-possession game, aka 2 2-point conversions needed, which is very hard. And the possibility that the Steelers get the ball and they go kick a quick field goal. And if sorry, this might be confusing to follow right here, but okay. The Raiders go for it on 4th down, 3 possessions prior to the end of the game. They miss it, right? And again, 23-7. If they had kicked a field goal and make it 23-10, they are down 13. Let's say the Steelers get the ball in one of their 2 possessions after we got that ball, and they kick a field goal, we're still within 2 possessions. Whereas because we went for it and didn't get it, if they go and kick a field goal at any point, we're down 3 possessions, the game's over. We're not coming back. you know. So I I basically one of my main points for this game was, Josh McDaniels' decision making at the end of the game. And this was something that was kind of echoed maybe exactly a year ago. I think it was week 5 though, against the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football. I want to say maybe it was Monday, but that was the Devontae Adams pushing the camera guy game. Um, where there was like a very stupid 2-point conversion attempt that didn't work out for us. You know, uh, so this is for lack of a better term, a concerning trend where Josh McDaniels is trying to do. I don't even know what you would call it. Like, I wouldn't call it the smart thing. I wouldn't call it like the impractical. Like, I don't know what the term even is. Like, it might just be stupid, but um,
He just
I
has
just don't.
lapses in judgment at like really inopportune times.
Yeah, I don't know. I In those circumstances, like at least I can understand the thought process of like, okay, if we get this, and if this happens, man, we have a real good chance of blah 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 blah. But when you go for something ballsy and like out of the ordinary and it doesn't work, you look doubly stupid. So, yeah, I mean, this was a game where the Josh McDaniels haters, you know, and doubters got to see exactly what they believe to be true. And yeah, it's definitely concerning. It's upsetting. This Steelers team is beatable. They made Kenny Pickett look like Kenny Stabler. Um,
Not really.
no, I mean it's a different era. I'm just saying that
Like
kind of to be
Kenny
to
Pickett
joke
just went
around.
out there. Kenny Pickett just went out there. He didn't even win the game. He just didn't lose it. Kenny
Yeah,
Stabler, I mean, was fucking fantastic.
yeah, I know, but it was more of a play on words because their names are Kenny.
Yeah.
But no picks, right? He got the game sealing first down throw. That was a very good play call. I mean, that really was on him. It was more of just, and actually, I mean, if you watched it, remember it. That was when they had Nate Hobbs blitz the quarterback on third down. This is when we needed to, get the ball back and try to score a touchdown. And we still had one more timeout left, maybe two. And it was like 3rd and 2, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 6, whatever it was. And like Kenny Pickett gets the snap, immediately rolls out to the left and quickly throws it to Allen Robinson from the slot, while Nate Hobbs is blitzing from the slot and doesn't get a good angle because he's immediately rolling out Kenny Pickett. And you can even hear Chris Collinsworth say like, "Wow, like the Raiders could not have called a worse defense on this play." And you might hear that and think like, "Oh, that's really telling on the defensive coordinator." I think what he meant was like that was just an unlucky call. Now, granted, I don't think blitzing when it's obviously maybe I'd have to go back and see how many yards the down was. I wouldn't say it was an obvious rushing down. If it was an obvious rushing down, like 3rd and 1, I understand the blitz. But because it was like 3rd and 2 or 3rd and 3, it's like they can complete a pass and really put us out of our misery. And you decided to blitz a defensive back. Like at least blitz a linebacker, you know? So that just sucked to see our nickel blitzing the quarterback as he immediately throws the pass to the slot receiver that the nickel was supposed
Should
to
have been
cover. Not
covering.
supposed, yeah, should have been covering. So our safety had no chance of getting there in time. And that chopped off a minute and a half of game time. That was immediately after the 2-minute warning. And then, they got 3 more downs and then we stopped them, but we got the ball back with 20 seconds left rather than a minute and 40 or something like that. And that's a huge difference. That's the difference between Jimmy G forcing a throw and getting intercepted on the final drive, and potentially not taking his time, but we might have had one timeout left at that point, and they could probably go a little more fast-paced, not as long distance, right? And maybe they have a chance. But yeah, what else do I have for this game? I already kind of mentioned Jimmy G's interceptions, but he just didn't look comfortable. He was making bad decisions. He was making some good decisions, but man, I don't really fault him on the Michael Mayer interception. He was throwing one. I think that was his first pick. Was one he threw to Michael Mayer. He was under a lot of pressure, and if you watch the angle where it's over his shoulder as he's throwing the ball, he puts it in a pretty good spot. As he releases it, Michael Mayer is breaking right. He's doing a 10 steps forward and then cutting to the right. I don't know what that route's called, but the linebacker just covered it perfectly, and it looked to me like Michael Mayer was pretty slow on his cut, and instead of boom, 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 and then turning, it was he curved off of his cut. It wasn't a cut, it was more like a slowly turning. So once the ball was thrown, the linebacker was oh, I'm jumping it, as Michael Mayer is still trying to cut,
It's an out route, by the way.
Out route. So, well, was it towards out of bounds, or is that an out route?
Yeah, out route is towards out of bounds. So if you go 10 yards up the field, roughly 10 yards up the field, and you go towards the sideline, it's an out. And then if you go 5 yards and towards the sideline, it's a flat.
Okay. Well, he was going inwards, in towards the middle of the field. So maybe it's an in.
So a drag?
A drag, there you go. It was 8 to 10 yards upfield, maybe less. But anyways, it was that was the one interception I won't fully fault Jimmy G on, because it looked like a kind of slow route from Mayer, and he was under a lot of pressure. And that was something I expected from the Steelers' defensive line, was a lot of pressure. The Raiders' offensive line had done pretty good the first 2 weeks, but it completely changed in this game. And then Jimmy G's second interception was so god awful. He must have been hearing footsteps or something and just threw it up for Myers, but threw it way past him. And he had two defenders just sitting there waiting for it, and Patrick Peterson picked it off. And then, of course, the final one on the final drive, just sailing Devontae Adams, and safety comes in and picks it or whatever. And then my last two, well, actually I have 3 notes. 2 more negative notes and then 1 good one. Negative note number 1, they still cannot run the ball. And apparently the Steelers defense has not been good against the run up until this game. And that might be in part because of Cleveland, but this was Josh Jacobs' best game, I would say, but it still was not nearly what we expect, at least based off of last season, from Josh Jacobs. He ended up with 17 rush attempts for 62 yards, as well as 5 targets, 3 receptions for 18 yards. So what is that, 90 yards total or 80 yards total? 80 yards. But on 17 attempts, I'd like to see 80 yards, not 60. His average rush yardage his average yards per rush right now is probably god awful. And I'd like to think that it'll get better as the season goes on, but this is 3 straight weeks of just not being able to develop the run. And there was a point, I think, in the third quarter, it was probably after Garoppolo's second interception, where I was just sitting there, looking at the TV like this, just fucking run the ball. Just develop the ball. Just develop the run. Just try. Because clearly forcing Garoppolo to throw the ball is not the way to do this. Because he's just going to eventually hear footsteps, thinking that TJ Watt is like breathing down his neck. So he just throws the ball up and it gets picked off. And Jacobs is obviously plenty good. So get him going. Get him more carries. I need to see him with north of 20 carries against the Chargers this week. And then my last negative for this game, this was another thing I talked about before, or a week ago and 2 weeks ago, which was the penalties. This team is getting more penalties than I'm comfortable with. And frankly, this team looks like it's coached by John Gruden right now with the amount of penalties they're getting. Here's my thing. I may never, at least as long as Josh McDaniels is the coach, I will never get hyped coming out of the preseason ever again. My God, what a polar opposite. And it's hilarious too because it's like, oh, the Niners look pretty bad and like their depth, blah blah blah, and the Raiders just killed them at joint practices and yada yada yada. And what they went, the Raiders might have went undefeated in the preseason. No, they lost the last game, but Aiden O'Connell and blah 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 blah. And then here we are 3 weeks in, and I'm like, I was coming out of the preseason like, man, this team looks like it's so well coached, and like, the veterans that have been here for a year now are like really starting to get in the groove of this offense and even on the defense, right? And yeah, it does not look good. Again, the amount of penalties that they're getting, I was saying like, wow, this looks like a really well-coached team. And I'm not saying that they're not. It's just you can't be having penalties and you can't be giving up so many turnovers. It's just going to lose you the game. I don't care how good your offense is going, unless you're like the Dolphins, paired with a pretty bad defense. I mean, weeks 1 and 3, I saw this defense do something at least that's pretty that gives me optimism, but it still doesn't move the needle for me at all, which is, week 1 and 3, they were getting shat on here and there, especially early on in the game. But then when the game came down to the wire and, it's the final 8 to 5 minutes of the game, the defense made stops when they needed to. Week 1, arguably that's what won them the game, was getting stops against Russell Wilson. Week 3, they gave this offense opportunities to win the game. They gave Josh McDaniels opportunities, and we saw what he did with them. But that's the one positive I'll give to the defense, now that I'm on the positives, than Nate Hobbs. Obviously, Max Crosby. I'm not going to talk much about Crosby because it's given. But Nate Hobbs had a great game in coverage. He gave up one pass early that I was kind of like, really? Like, looked like he was sleeping at the wheel again. Other than that, he looked great. And then Malcolm Kuntz looked really good off the edge. He was getting a lot of pressure in there, it felt like. And then on offense, the one guy I'll talk about just because he went nuclear was Devontae Adams. It felt like he was open on every play. But other than that, I think that's all I have for that game. I remember saying a week ago that, it was going to come down to the offensive line for the Raiders versus the defensive line for the Steelers, and clearly the Steelers defensive line won in this game. And then I want to say I said the same for the Raiders defensive line versus the Steelers offensive line, and the Raiders got a good amount of pressure, but clearly not enough. I probably also mentioned, like, can they get the run going? And they didn't, at least not enough. And then it really came down to Jimmy G turning the ball over way too much, penalties, and then Josh McDaniels' decision-making at the end of the game. Those were the 5 things that it came down to, was Steelers D-line versus the Raiders O-line, and the other things that I just noted.
Mm-hmm.
So,
all right. So let me get into it. You pretty much touched on like most of the points that I was going to talk about. So I'll try and keep it brief, and then we'll get to a couple comments. But man, Josh McDaniels, what the what the hell is that? Like, all right, the I I didn't like the decision to go for it on fourth down when you're clearly. I mean, what yard was it, Mike? It seemed like it would have been a pretty good field goal, or a pretty good chance that Carlson would have hit the field goal to put you guys only down 13,
Yeah.
right?
So this
Which
is like,
is
say, 8 minutes left. I'm gonna, while you talk, I'm gonna look for on ESPN the play-by-play. But
okay.
I want to say it was around 8 minutes left, down
I think
23
it
to
was around
7.
10 minutes. I think it was around 10 minutes left.
Yeah, I
There
mean
was a
that sounds about
lot of
right.
there was a lot of football left to be played.
Yeah.
So, you kick that, and yes, you're still down. It's still a two-score game, but it's a much different two-score. It's a hey, you just scored the touchdown. You don't have to worry about converting the 2-point conversion to now you need both.
Mm.
And so, all right, we see the thought process. All right, you know what? Fuck the field goal. That's not going to push the needle. We need to get in the end zone, score touchdowns. We need, we're going to get those 2-point conversions. Okay, that is the train of thought. Then you go. Um, Obviously, you don't convert the fourth down, and then on the next drive, you guys scored the touchdown, get the 2-point conversion, and then it's like, okay, one score game. You need 8 points, and after that, you guys decide to kick the field goal, and I'm just thinking, why didn't you kick it earlier when there was more time left?
Yeah.
And
It,
then
they
and then
actually it was 13 minutes left in the game. They were
yeah,
at fourth
what
and
the
5
hell was that?
on the 22-yard line. Yeah.
That's Carlson's bread and butter. You kick that, and it's a different game. It's
Yeah.
it's a two-score game still, but there's a lot of time left, and you can actually have sustain drives and score those touchdowns instead of desperate drives where you need desperate plays on 2-point conversions.
Yeah. That's
So
the
I
thing.
didn't like
That
that.
that's
And
the
then
thing that the main thing that
go
you
ahead.
said there that is the key to me is whether they kick the field goal or not, whether they get a touchdown. Well, you kick the field goal, you're still down 2 possessions. But if you don't get the first down, which they didn't, you're not only down 2 possessions, you need 2 2-point conversions. But if you kick this field goal and obviously he's going to make it, you're still down 2 possessions, yes. But now you only need single point extra points. And that second touchdown that you hopefully get, extra point, will put you ahead so long as you can keep stopping the Steelers' offense. And like I said earlier, you kick this field goal. Let's say the Steelers go down and kick a field goal with like 10 to 8 minutes left. You're still down 2 possessions. You're just back to square one. Whereas missing this fourth down, if they kick that field goal, you're out of the game. You're done. So anyway, continue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I really didn't like, that they didn't go for the field goal in order to alleviate the need to get the 2-point conversions. And then next thing you know, on the next drive, they get the touchdown they need, and it's still a and then it becomes a one possession game, but you still need the 2-point conversion. And then you drive down the field. There was like what, like, I don't know how much time there was left on the drive where the leverage penalty occurred, but they decide to kick the field goal there when they could have kicked it earlier and had a lot more time left to actually drive down the field and score.
Yeah.
You know, uh, and then they go closer, and then it's like 4th and 5, right? Like 4th and 5, 4th and 6, like on the around the goal line, maybe 4th and 4. You know,
Mm-hmm.
And then they decide, I know we're close to the end zone right now, and I know I didn't want to kick it earlier from far out, and I know this would pin the Steelers back, and we might have another opportunity if we have to make the stop that we're going to have to make anyway. Let me go ahead and trot out Carlson out there. Like, oh my God, what are
Yeah.
you doing? That was
That was with
terrible judgment.
2 minutes and 13 seconds left to kick the field goal on the at Pittsburgh's 8-yard line, but it was 4th and 4. So they could have got a first down, and then it'd be first and goal with the 2-minute warning.
Go for it. If you don't think that you can
Yeah,
get 4 yards on one play right there, I'm sorry, but when you kick that field goal and you don't have enough time left on the clock, you're not going to be able to get 80 yards or
yeah,
75 yards for a whole drive. And then
yeah,
that's
exactly.
exactly what ended up happening.
Yep. And
Because
again, if you go for it and you don't get it, you're still down a touchdown. Whereas
yeah,
if you kick this field goal and you get it, which they did, you're still down a touchdown. The only difference is now if you get a touchdown, which is going to be hard, you'll win the game. Whereas, if you got this touchdown and a 2-point conversion, you tie the game. But again, if you go for it and you get it and you don't get the 2-point conversion, you're only down 2 points. You can get the ball back like you still want to and kick a field goal from 50 yards away and win the game. Yeah, at not going for it on 4th and 4 at Pittsburgh's 8 is pretty ridiculous. I mean, the offensive weapons you have, specifically Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers, you could put Renfro in there. I mean, you could have got it done. So, and I think honestly, like I'd rather lose trying to go for it than kicking a field goal and like, oh, it's up to the defense now, and putting it in the hands of the other team.
Yeah, it's like the Packers playoff game when they decided to kick it against the Bucks, and then ultimately Rodgers got eliminated that way. When he got eliminated from the playoffs that way, he's been eliminated so many times. You pick and choose. If there's a possible way to get eliminated from the playoffs, Rodgers has done it. But another thing I'll say about the game, aside from like the lapses in judgment, all right, I have respect for Josh McDaniels, but that it just wasn't a good like game decision making game for him. Like it was very poor clock to situational management from him. But aside from that, I think Jimmy Garoppolo played very poorly, and oh man, I almost think that I've seen enough out of him. I think O'Connell should be suited up for game days. I don't think it should be a question anymore.
Yeah.
Why is Brian Hoyer the backup? I don't know. Because if Jimmy Garoppolo goes down, Brian Hoyer is not going to win you a Super Bowl. So you want to at least see what you have out of this rookie who at least looked promising in the preseason. And I think Pia's dad's watching. He doesn't like the term rookie, but O'Connell's technically a rookie. So he can actually throw the ball downfield. And I feel like he would have given the Raiders a better chance to win this week. Are you wondering if the train is coming from your?
No, I'm like you made me double take. I was like, is O'Connell a rookie? But he is.
Yeah, he is. He's a 5th-round rookie.
Yeah. I think the reason why he's not active is possibly in part because of the new rule that they put in, where the emergency quarterback doesn't have to be on the active roster, not active, but
the game day roster.
The game day roster, so he can be inactive, and then if the first two go down, he can come in.
Yeah, but Hoyer should be the emergency quarterback.
I agree.
It should not be O'Connell.
100%. And you know what? Well, actually, I'll get to what I was going to say on our next topic. Not to try to rush into that or anything, but there is something to be said about that. But yeah, O'Connell was the one person that I forgot to really mention from this recap, in part because he wasn't a part of it, but yeah, it's telling and a little concerning that he's not on the active roster when I think every week now, maybe week 2 I don't think Garoppolo got hurt, but weeks 1 and 3 he went down at one point in the game. And this is another thing about Garoppolo that we expected coming into this season with him is at some point, knowing him, he's going to go down. And it might be pure misfortune and bad luck, but it's going to happen. And when that happens, do you really want it to be Brian Hoyer? Not me, the Raider fan. No. I want to see Aiden O'Connell. I want to see what he has.
Yeah.
Maybe Josh McDaniels is like, oh, I don't want to put him out there in a bad situation, but it's like, hey man, he's a fucking
Hello.
pro. He's a
It's the
pro.
Raiders. It's a bad situation. Like, go see what he has. He took the Raiders in the preseason and made it a good situation.
Yeah, and also he didn't even get to throw to Jacoby Myers or Devontae Adams, so I mean that's a pretty
He
good
did
situation to
in
be
one of the
in.
games, didn't he? Or no?
I don't think
Myers,
so.
yes.
I feel like Myers and Devontae didn't play at all in the preseason.
Oh, you
You
might
might
be
be
right.
thinking you're probably thinking of Christian Wilkerson because he was just getting everything, uh,
Hmm.
and he's one of the fellow dreadlock bearing wide receivers on this team.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I just I'm at the point now. With how bad Garoppolo played, and I've seen this quite a bit on Twitter for the Raider fans. Aiden O'Connell needs to be active and ready to go starting this next week because
Yes.
if it keeps looking like this with Jimmy G, where he's throwing multiple picks, and not only just multiple picks, but like bad decision making on his interceptions, like just floating the fucking ball and just hoping that Jacoby Myers gets there, I would much rather see Aiden O'Connell. And then I
The,
couldn't help but think, like today, the day after the game, I'm sitting here like, damn it, dude. This was my one thing with signing Garoppolo. I didn't mind I didn't mind signing him at all because I was like, you know what? I think of all the quarterbacks that were available at that time, he gave us the best chance to win games. But they signed him to a 3-year deal. And I'm pretty sure the final year in the deal is not guaranteed, but that might have changed because they gave him a sign
it res-
they
restructured him, not
they
right?
restructured to create cap space for this season. So they probably put all the cap hit on next year, but for all I know, it could be the next 2 seasons. And because they're like, oh, he looks so great in the preseason or something like that. So are we stuck with him next year? Because I couldn't help but think today, I was just like, dude, I don't want to be stuck with this guy. Like, okay, this would be like the Niners essentially from like the past 2 years, except we don't have a good team. Like, okay, let's say O'Connell gets a chance in there and he just proves like I'm better and I should be the starter, right? Like my one thought today that was positive was like, well, we could keep Jimmy G as his backup for a year next season. But I'm like, but we're paying him like $30 million to be a backup. That's trash.
You
I'd
can
rather go pay a
restructure.
defensive tackle, maybe, but because of the way now that they gave him that, the signing bonus or whatever, the restructure, he's got us against the ropes as far as his contract goes. He could just say, no, I'm not going. I'm not restructuring shit. You signed the deal too, you know, and we can go. Oh shit! Like, like nobody's gonna trade for him. Why the hell would they? So,
Hmm.
uh, it's gonna be tough. I don't know. I'm really curious to see how this unfolds a year from now with him. But yeah. I mean, point being, I need to see O'Connell this season, and I know we will. But like, if it's gonna be this bad, I want to see him within 3 weeks. Aiden
Hmm.
O'Connell.
Yeah.
And that's not what I wanted to say, 2 weeks ago.
So finishing up my thought with Raiders versus Steelers, um, I think Garoppolo showed that if you put the game in his hands, you're not setting your team up for success. I can only think of one game. Well, actually, maybe there was also the Rams game in 2021, but there were two games in 2021 where Jimmy Garoppolo, I think, led game-winning drives. Um, don't quote me on the Rams game, but I physically, like, I witnessed this in person. Week 3 against the Green Bay Packers, I was there. Sunday Night Football, home opener, and Garoppolo actually, he played pretty bad in the first half, and then the Niners came back, and Garoppolo led what looked like to be what would have been the game-winning touchdown to Kyle Juszczyk, but they gave Aaron Rodgers a little too much time, and they ended up losing the game. And it was actually a heroic effort by Garoppolo in that game. But more often than not, if you force Jimmy Garoppolo to have to put the team on his shoulders, it is too much weight for him. And I think he's good when when the team is dictating the pace and he can just run his dink and dunk plays, and maybe we'll have an occasional bad turnover. When where I really don't like Jimmy is when he's got the ball and the play is going longer than it like the play extends, and Jimmy's like, and then he does like that thing with his feet where he's like stomping both of his feet. Oh God, what do I do with the ball? And then
there's Jacoby.
He's like, hey, go that way.
Yeah.
Throws it. It's bad news bears every time Jimmy does it. It's his happy feet, just as Chicano says, happy feet Jimmy. It's a bad recipe, it's a recipe for disaster. I think Aiden O'Connell has to be suited up going forward, because you have to see what you have out of this guy before this season ends, because you guys might end up with a top draft pick. And you can't be playing that game of, oh, well, I don't know if we should take a quarterback because we don't know. We feel pretty good about Aiden. No, you should know what you have in Aiden. And if Aiden is good enough to win games, then hell, you might build a team around him.
100%, dude. That will piss me off to no end if I see Brian Hoyer on the field for like multiple quarters when it could be valuable reps for Aiden O'Connell, and like just reps for everybody to see, the coaching staff, the fans, to see, hey, what does Aiden O'Connell have? What does he offer this team right now? And then what can we see him potentially, growing into? What sort of role could he be a starter? Look at Brock Purdy. Look at some of these other quarterbacks, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, like they were mid-round quarterbacks that are like highly paid because they are successful. Like Aiden O'Connell could be that next guy. He could be, but we have to see.
And if he sucks, you'll at least figure it out. Josh McDaniels, you're supposed to be the genius on offense. You look at the film and you would be able to determine whether or not you can do something, with Aiden O'Connell going forward. What's so funny, Mike?
I'll tell you later. It's funny.
Okay. But last thing, I will end the recap with something positive. One, the positive thing about this game is that, let's just be honest. The Raiders kind of got manhandled a little bit on Sunday Night Football, and it really was not going their way for like the good portion of the game, right? And then one thing we saw is maybe Raider teams in the past would quit. This team kept fighting.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. I've seen that in multiple games, it feels like, with Josh McDaniels. And that's the one, like, that is one thing I'll give to McDaniels. And I think a lot of people fail to recognize is like a lot of people have this preconceived notion that all of the players hate Josh McDaniels and McDaniels is hard to like and blah, 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 blah. But it's like, this team isn't not playing hard for him, It's just a matter of how these games have gone, and then I just don't think this team is there yet, and like I had hopes that they could be there, but I also, going into the season, I did not expect playoffs. I was hoping for playoffs, but really I don't know if I'd say I expected, but I was very much right there in the sense of I want to see a winning season. I don't care if it's bare minimum 9 wins. I just want to see a winning season. But if they're going to keep playing like this and the way that they got creamed by the Bills, they're not going to be a winning team. They're going to be another 6 to 7 win team, 8th to 10th pick overall. And if you want to get a quarterback, unless you get lucky and the right guy falls to you, You're gonna have to trade up and sell the farm for the future. Yada yada yada. So yeah, I mean, in a perfect world, at least for this team, Aiden O'Connell goes out there and he plays so well that it's undeniable. He needs to be the starter, right? And he wins them games. Like he's the difference, in games. Go ahead.
Question. So let's just say O'Connell steps in there and does win a couple games. Who are some teams that might not be good that need an upgrade at quarterback? I've got the Vikings, the Buccaneers, the Washington Commanders, and the Atlanta Falcons.
Are you saying to trade for O'Connell or
No.
Garoppolo?
I'm saying that, you're mentioning the Raiders might win in a couple games and then they'll need to trade up to draft a quarterback.
Oh yeah.
Oh, and then Chicago, I think you can add them in there now. I think
they might end up they're going to end up with the first overall pick at this rate.
Yeah.
They might fall Caleb Williams right into their laps and then trade
Justin Fields. Yeah. All right, so we've got 5 teams there. Would you add anybody onto that?
So give me the list again.
The Vikings, the Buccaneers, the is Mike getting attacked by dogs in the background there? We don't know. No. We have the Vikings, the Buccaneers. God, I just named the names. Why am I brain farting? Chicago, Washington, Atlanta. All right. Who else? So, all right, there's 5 teams there. The Raiders are one of those teams. So the Raiders would have to, I guess, go ahead of, a couple of those teams. Maybe the Jets might draft a guy to put behind Aaron Rodgers when he comes back, or hedge their bets on if he doesn't come back. Anybody else you would add, Mike, to that list of names?
What about the Rams?
Possibly, if Matt Stafford decides to retire. So that is a lot of teams. The Raiders probably would have to trade up.
I could also see, this is the Chiefs type of situation where the Chiefs traded up and got Mahomes when they already had Alex Smith. I could see the Seahawks.
Yeah.
And they also have the draft capital, I want to say. Don't they have a second pick this year or no? Maybe that was last year. That was last year because they had the 5th pick from the trade. Well, actually, they should. They should have another one this year for Russell Wilson, right? Could be wrong.
I think it was 2 or 3 first-round picks. But
they definitely got a lot.
Yeah. Let's get to some comments.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. By the way, we got our first incorrect prediction of the year, both of us. So we need to keep a tally. All right. Chicano says Jimmy being Jimmy. And he says, nice to see you guys. Chicano, thank you for coming back to another live stream and commenting. We really appreciate you checking us out.
Yeah.
Chicano asks, you think Crosby needs help up front?
I've been saying for years now that the Raiders' biggest need, other than a franchise quarterback, is a high-end pass rushing defensive tackle. They are giving Crosby help theoretically in first-round pick Tyree Wilson. Give him a year or two. Right now, he's kind of starting slow. He didn't have, the ordinary training camp and rookie mini camp that most rookies get because he was out until the 3rd preseason game. So he's kind of going through the motion of training camp in week 3 of the regular season. As the season progresses, hopefully he will progress as well. Give him a full off season, this upcoming offseason, build up some strength, work more with Crosby. Maybe next year we see a little bit of a breakout. They're also missing Chandler Jones. That's already been spoken about. But yes, to answer the question, in the middle, on the interior, that is where Crosby needs help. And I've felt strongly about this for 2 years now. Really many
Well,
years, since Khalil Mack.
he had Ngakwe, and Ngakwe was pretty good, but you guys decided not to re-sign him.
Well, they decided to go with essentially a sign and trade for Chandler Jones, and then traded Yannick for Rocky Sin, which was cool in theory because they got a starting corner and arguably an upgrade, even though he ended up not being an upgrade at defensive end. But yeah, they have done a pretty solid job in theory in getting Crosby help on the other side of the edge, but on the interior, there is still issues with the pass rush. And like Tillery, he had one or two pass rushes where he got pressure. Bilal Nichols looked pretty good against the run early on in the game, but I can't help but think that if you gave the Raiders Jeffrey Simmons, is that his name, from the Titans? Why am I blanking? DeForest Buckner. Obviously, I'm not going to ask for an Aaron Donald, but I mean, my God, put him on
You
this
know who
team.
the Raiders should have signed this offseason?
Javon Hargrave.
Yep, that's exactly what I was going to say. They should have
Yeah.
coughed up the money for Javon Hargrave.
Yeah, I mean,
that would have filled the need that you were literally expressing, a pass rushing defensive tackle.
Yeah. It sucks. It has been something that I've felt is a massive need for a while now. And like I said, dating back to Khalil Mack, I just think having a good interior pass rush greatly helps the defensive ends. Look at the Chiefs with Chris Jones. Mm-hmm. So to answer the question, yes, specifically on the interior.
Mm-hmm. Chicano also asks, do you think Devontae and Jimmy have that chemistry? Let me answer this. I don't think that they necessarily have chemistry. I just think that Devontae Adams is so fucking good that it's like, all right, if you notice on every single throw that Jimmy Garoppolo makes to Devontae Adams, they're hardly ever in stride. Devontae has to either stop or contort his body to catch the ball. And if he is hit in stride, I'm telling you, a lot of these plays would be probably touchdowns or even bigger gains. So the fact that he has to stop, Jimmy's throwing it to the right guy. It's just, throw a better ball. You're a professional. Be professional.
Yeah, you are dead on. I noticed the same thing, and I didn't even really mention that. But yeah, every time he threw to Devontae, it's like, great choice. If I were playing quarterback, I probably would make the same choice. And I mean, you got it there, but Devontae was running this way, and now he has to stop and catch the ball and run this way because you threw it behind him or you threw it low or something. It's like, man, just catch him in stride. So yeah, I mean, chemistry, I don't think it's there yet. I don't know if it ever will get there, but Devontae is so good, it just doesn't matter. I mean, you could probably throw Hoyer out there and Devontae would still have a 100-yard game,
Mm-hmm. I think having Jimmy and Devontae paired together is like having hot sauce and lemon paired with milk. Like it's not the best combination, but some people, you might find some people who like it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pia's dad, Jose Cisneros, says, I was wondering why didn't anyone see Adams?
I'm assuming on the defense.
I'm assuming that you're probably right, that like he wasn't getting a lot of attention and like he was running wide open.
Honestly, this poses a great question. I mean, it is a great question, but it also produces another one for myself, which is, I can see I guess this isn't a question, but I can see defenses moving forward, double, if not triple teaming Devontae Adams, because this is now, I think, 2 weeks in a row where I don't know. I want to say he had a good game against the Bills, but I mean this game was nuclear. 2 touchdowns, 160 plus yards, like 10 catches, insane. He had like 19 targets.
Mhm.
Um,
I don't think you can triple team Devontae. I don't think you can do it
it's probably not
because
wise, but you could easily double team
Jac-
him. Not easily like successfully, but easily as in you put a corner and either another corner or probably a
a
safety on
safety.
Devontae. You just have to convert your defense to allow that to happen. You know,
I
maybe
think
you.
they're doing that already. And I think Jacoby Myers is eating. I think Jacoby Myers is really good, actually.
Oh, Jacoby Myers
He's
is great.
impressed the hell out of me.
Yeah, he's great. He's a great number 2 option for an offense. I think I really
Yeah.
do like him, and I like him moving forward for this team. But my point being is, I kind of alluded to this earlier, and this is one of my other negatives about Jimmy Garoppolo so far this season is he is very keyed in on only Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers. And if it's not them, he's going to either dump it off to Josh Jacobs, and maybe he will look at Austin Hooper or
Mm.
Myers. Mayer, sorry.
Mm. So I'm assuming Mr. C is using the talk to text. I think he's saying that Adams was open many times.
Yeah. No.
Sometimes the talk to text will pick it up like
Yeah.
multiple times.
Yeah. No. No. I mean, he was open a lot, and I think that's it. Could be that the defense was getting a little too complacent because they had a big lead, and they didn't. They were essentially playing prevent defense. They didn't want to give up the big touchdown, but they were willing to give up the 12-yard gain. Probably more likely the 5 to 6 yard gain, but then it turns into 12 yards when Devontae, somehow gets open every play because he's just that good at route running and he knows the zones. If they're playing zone coverage, he knows where to go.
Mm-hmm. Pia's dad also with a hot take: the Traders, aka the Raiders, will be in the playoffs. Only 3 games in Super Bowl. Only 3 games in. Super Bowl's in Vegas, so they're at least going to be there at the beginning of the playoffs. Is his prediction?
I mean, it really comes down to the play calling and Jimmy Garoppolo. The defense, from what I've seen, they're still not good, but they can make stops when it's necessary at the end of the game. They've done that now in 2 games, and I like that I see that. But the lack of developing the run successfully, and then pair that with Jimmy Garoppolo's horrible decision making, and here and there Josh McDaniels' horrible decision making, it's not a very good model for success. But I think these are things that can change, namely McDaniels and Josh Jacobs. Jimmy G scares me. I think if he's getting pressure in his face and he's getting his happy feet, it's time to worry. And again, I don't know if I said it, but I did. But he's literally been hyper targeting 2 guys on this offense. It's like he's not spreading the ball around. So I don't know if that's a Jimmy problem or a McDaniels play calling problem, but either way, like you can't be forcing it to 2 guys because the defenses will pick that up and like really watch those guys and and again, like if you can't develop the run, they'll sell out for the pass or they'll just keep loading the box and dare you to pass and eventually Jimmy G's going to throw an interception. It's just they need to get things fixed. Now, granted, to answer this, I mean, I told you last week, I was saying, if you look at the schedule upcoming leading up to like week 10, like I see a lot of winnable games for this team. And I mean, week 10 is past the mid-season point of the season. So if they can have a winning record past the halfway point, yeah, they can go out there and shock some people and make the playoffs, but They cannot play the way that they did against the Steelers. That is a beatable team, and we're about to go face a team who has a worse record, but I think is a much better team. So,
I mean, one thing I'll say is it is going to come down to the offensive line. I don't think it necessarily is going to come down to Jimmy Garoppolo. I think that Jimmy Garoppolo can only improve only if the offensive line can get some push, dude. They are getting bullied. If they can't run the ball, I'm sorry, the Raiders are not going to the playoffs.
yeah,
If
100%.
If you get what you've had these past 3 weeks from the offensive line, I'm sorry, you're going to be in contention with the Bears, not for the Super Bowl, but for the #1 overall pick. And to give clarification, what I'm saying is that Adams did amazing as always, but was also open so many times. He could have done even more, and I think he made it known to the sideline. Okay, so let me read that again. Yeah, he definitely could have done more. It's just a matter of the offensive line had to hold up protection more. And, Jimmy's just got to – I mean, he's throwing to the right place. I feel like when he is targeting Devontae, you're saying that he could have been targeting Devontae more. And I didn't see it on the sideline, but I definitely believe it that Devontae was probably upset on the sideline or emotional on the sideline because he's just that kind of player. He's very, he is emotional.
He wants to win.
Yeah, he wants to win. And
That's what he came here to do.
I think he believes, and he definitely does give the Raiders the best chance to win. So,
yeah, I think if you threw to him every play, you'd have a chance at winning the game. But you also just can't do that, And I think if
Rodgers
you're gonna
did it,
yeah, but it was very rare that Rodgers was giving him 19 targets. Like that's a lot. That'll lead to wear and tear on the body. So I'd prefer for him to get like 9 targets, 6 catches, 120 yards, maybe a touchdown, but also Jacoby Myers gets 9 targets, 100 yards, a touchdown or 2, and then Austin Hooper gets like 2 targets, 12 yards, whatever. Michael Mayer maybe gets a little better, and then more importantly, Josh Jacobs is the guy that needs to be like the 1A option for this offense. Like that's what he was last year, and okay, we won 6 games, but that's what kept our offense in the game. I mean, we were down 23-7. Because we couldn't run the ball on this team, and we also couldn't pass the ball. Well, I mean, we could, but they were getting so much pressure on us, it was getting hard. Whereas if you can develop the run and get the defense to not sell out for the pass and kind of fear the run, then you could start throwing the ball and getting more, even split with pass and rush, and hopefully become more efficient. I really think Jacobs needs to be the guy that just bullies the defense and breaks them down, and then, boom, 25-yard gain to Devontae Adams and gash him, and then 5-yard run, Jacobs. Pummel some dude, I think Jacobs needs to be the guy that's out there bruising dudes, and then Devontae Adams is kind of the closer.
Mm.
But there are games where he has to be the guy that gets 15 targets and 12 catches and hella yards and hella touchdowns, and that's great. I love that he can be that guy because he is that guy. But I don't want to depend on that every week because at some point we're going to face a defense that's just not going to allow that to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
Real quick before we get into our final topic of the day, I just want to give a quick birthday shout out to my little cousin Gabriel. Gabriel watches the show from time to time. So, Gabriel, happy 14th birthday. I hope you had a great day and behave. Be nice to your brothers.
Happy
Um,
birthday.
yeah. All right. We're ready to jump in to Raiders versus Chargers Week 4 preview. Um, I'm going to go ahead and defer to Mike on this one as well. Mike, go ahead and say what you're looking forward to, what you're dreading, your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, this is another weird game where I don't fully know what to expect. For one thing, it's a divisional matchup, and every year, the Raiders face the Chargers, and it feels like they always split the series. They'll win one and they'll lose one. They might win one at home, lose away, or they might win away, even though there's going to be a lot of Raider fans in that stadium, and then lose at home. Uh, the Chargers just lost Mike Williams for the season. I honestly think that Austin Eckler will not play. I think that they're saving him for the bye week, which is the following week, and then come week 6, he will start playing again. And I think I wouldn't be shocked if the Chargers think they can do that and pull out a win against us at this pace. But if they are without Eckler and Mike Williams, I also think this is a winnable game because Josh Kelly isn't getting it done for them. Keenan Allen's been scorching the earth, and Justin Herbert has been looking like an all-pro so far this season. I think in a similar fashion, but even worse than the Raiders, Brandon Staley has been holding this team back, the Chargers, with his decision-making. And then their defense has not been as good, again, just as last year, I want to say, as they look on paper. So if the Raiders can have a get-right game on offense, they can win this game. But after that performance against the Steelers, I have a hard time expecting that, So, yeah, I don't want to give my prediction until the end. I'll let you kind of get into this game, but I will admit this is winnable, but this is also a game where we could lose 34-10.
I wouldn't be shocked if the Raiders, or I guess if the Chargers did lose this game, but I'm gonna go with the Chargers. I'm sorry. I think that Justin Herbert is just so good. I think passing wise, he was 40 of 47 this past week.
Yeah.
And that was against the Vikings. They don't have a very strong defense, but I mean, one thing I can tell you, it seems as though the Raiders don't have a very strong defense as well. And the Raiders. I mean, you said that Kenny Pickett looked like Kenny Stabler, and I know you were just playing on the names, but I mean, Justin Herbert, he won't have Mike Williams, but I mean, he gets to reload with they still have a good wide receiver group. They've got Keenan Allen, like you said, who's been scorching the earth on my fantasy team, thankfully. If anybody from our league is watching, you guys said I reached for him, but he's looking pretty damn good, isn't he? I'm keeping receipts. It's a long season. We'll see if it holds. But were you gonna add something, Mike?
Well, I was just gonna say, I think of all your reaches, that one actually wasn't that bad. But anyways,
yeah.
And obviously now it's really good. So
yeah. They've got Keenan Allen, they've got Quentin Johnston, they've got Joshua Palmer. These are some pretty solid receivers, I would say. Quentin Johnston got taken in the first round. He's a big-bodied receiver. We'll see if he, slides right into Mike Williams's role, or if they use him and promote Josh Palmer to Mike Williams's role. I really don't I have no clue how they're going to do it there. Yeah. But I think that this is a good offense. And yes, they are missing Austin Eckler, but they're not really much of a ground game sort of team. Their running back involvement typically, at least with Eckler in the past, I feel like has been, a lot of the screen game. Get the running back open out in space, and he'll make a couple guys miss and just like wear down a defense over the course of a game. And the pass, I mean, Justin Herbert is able to deliver the ball downfield. I don't like the Raiders' chances in this one, so I'm going to go ahead and go with the Chargers. And this is in LA, right? Not that it matters. There's going to be more Raider fans regardless, but
yeah, but it is in LA.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, was that all you had?
That's pretty much all that I had. I'm going. Chargers are going to win against the Raiders. I would love to find out that I'm wrong, but I don't think I will be. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to the Raider fans.
I feel like mentioning this stat, even though it's really not a big thing towards this game, but the bottom 5 in point differential through 3 weeks, the Bears are minus 59. So in other words, they're losing by 59 points if you put all 3 games together.
Mhm.
Giants are minus 55, Broncos minus 53, Raiders the 4th worst at minus 32, and then Washington minus 28. Obviously, the Bills game has a big, deal to do with that, but the Niners are top 3, along with the Bills and Dolphins at the top. But the Chargers, I don't see them anywhere in this list. It was just bottom 5 and top 5. I think that the Raiders are going to have a hard time in this game. And like I said, it's either going to be the Chargers win by 13 and it's just like never in sight, or it's going to be a close game and it'll be a heartbreaker that Justin Herbert, wins at the end. Or it'll be a get right game where the Raiders finally develop the run. Jimmy G shakes off the shit from week 3 and has a solid game, enough to win a game. Oh, fuck. Damn it. I was just about to pick the Raiders. I swear to you, I was just about to pick them. I was going to say, and that's the one I'm going to go for. I think they're going to have a get-right game and all that stuff, and I forgot until just now. Jimmy G might not play this game because he's in concussion protocol. And it's actually like I saw a tweet that he might his ability for this game is in doubt already.
It should be doubtful because I saw this statistic when Anthony Richardson got his concussion that there has yet to be a player that has gone into the concussion protocol that has returned sooner than 10 days.
Yeah. The most recent concussion protocol. Yeah. Yeah. I feel
think
like
the
I've seen
NFL is
some
trying
players
to.
though.
I think they're trying to be a little bit more patient with it because of what happened last year with Tua.
Yeah. I know I remember players getting out of it within 3 days, but that was probably like 2 years ago, and now it's completely changed, and they're like being way more cautious. So, unfortunately, yeah, it's entirely possible that Jimmy G doesn't even play. Fuck.
If it's Hoyer, there's no shot you guys are winning this game. If it's O'Connell, he could shock the world.
Yeah, I'll give you this. If Jimmy Garoppolo is inactive, well, if Brian Hoyer is the starter, I predict that the Raiders lose. If Aiden O'Connell is the starter, I predict that the Raiders win. So that is my I don't know what the term is, but at least I'm losing the term. My condition for my prediction. So we will come back next week, and we will have to remember that if Brian Hoyer was the starter at the beginning, the first snap of the game, I predict that they lose. But if Aiden O'Connell is the starter, at the first snap of the game, I predict that they win. And also, if Jimmy G's a starter, I predict that they win. But if Brian Hoyer's a starter, I predict that the Raiders lose. But if
Okay.
it's Aiden O'Connell or Jimmy G, I say that the Raiders will win. And it's a get right game.
Okay. See, I thought that this past week, I was like, yeah, I want to be all hopeful for the Raiders and everything, and I'm like, I didn't use my I feel like I didn't use my brain enough in my prediction, and I was like, the Raiders should have a bounce back game, but there's no should in the NFL. It's about what's going to happen in between the tackles and what's going to happen on the field. I
My,
I mean, there is should in the NFL. It's just I have to see it again with the Raiders. I think they have to reprove it to me, and I'm going to
yeah.
pick the Chargers because that offense is really good. They went
Yeah,
toe to
I don't.
toe with Miami, who just like blew out the Broncos, who you guys had a close game with in Week 1.
Yeah, here's what I'll say. Um, I think that you're making the smarter decision here. I kind of just wanted to finally pick somebody different than you, but that's not my main reason. I think that the Raiders should have their backs against the wall, and I think there's no better, there's not many better teams, especially in this division, to have your back against the wall and face than the Chargers because, again, somehow their head coach will just fucking blunder this game.
Mm-hmm.
I get it, if it's a close game, I see the Chargers choking essentially. Like I can just see it now. And also, like looking back on the Steelers game, it was like, oh, they have a pretty good defense. They definitely have a great pass rush. Although the previous week 2, they got killed by the Browns. But their offense isn't good. So that was kind of our reasoning for the Raiders winning was like, well, I think they'll just outscore the Steelers offense and their defense might actually look good for once. Turned out that wasn't the case. But in this game, like I said, the Chargers could just outright outscore us and make us look bad, especially on defense. But I also think that the Chargers defense is not nearly as good as like you would even think that they are or should be. And because of that, I could see a get right game. I could see Josh Jacobs finally getting back to form. And I could see us winning. I really can. And again, if Eckler is out, the Raiders can stop the run. And it's just going to be Herbert versus the Raiders. I think that's what it'll end up being. It'll be Herbert and Keenan Allen versus the Raiders.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I think we have a shot.
Mm-hmm. Here's one thing I'll say. Last week, my heart was telling me that the Raiders were going to win, but my mind was telling me Pittsburgh was going to win. This week, I kind of feel the same way. My heart tells me, the Raiders, my gut's like, yeah, the Chargers are going to fucking blow it. But my thought, when you actually process, I think maybe I'm giving the Raiders a little bit too much credit, in my gut.
Mm.
And I just think that the Chargers are a better football team.
I think the Chargers should be. This was my other thing I was going to say is it's entirely possible that the Steelers just have such a good defense, blah, 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 and the Bills are way better than us. And we are better than the Broncos. But what's possible is that that's not saying much. The Broncos are 0-3. They just got beat 70-20, And the week before that, they were getting beat by Washington. And then the following week, Washington gets killed by Buffalo, where their quarterback throws 4 interceptions. So maybe the Broncos are just that bad, and us beating them by 1 point in week 1 isn't saying much. And, we lose this game to the Chargers, and then week 5, I don't even know who we face, but it might be rough from then on,
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, if we're 1-3, let me look really quick. Sorry. And let's say week 5, we face. Let me look. Sorry. Jimmy Garoppolo game log.
How
Green
many
Bay
teams? How many teams make the playoffs
per
in each
conference 7.
conference now? 7. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, so here's one thing. I mean, it doesn't really have to do with this week, but teams that I believe by the end of the season are a lock to make the playoffs in the AFC. I think the Chiefs are a lock. I think the Dolphins are a lock.
The
Um,
Bills.
yeah, I think they're pretty much a lock to get to the playoffs.
You
The
take away
Bengals
week
won
1.
today, but
Yeah,
I don't
you
think they're a
take away.
lock yet.
No, not yet. They barely got out of the Rams. And then what I was going to say about the Bills is you take away week 1, a divisional game against the Jets where 9-11 and Aaron Rodgers gets down, and it was an emotional game, I'd say, for the Jets. And their defense really played their hearts out, and special teams, obviously. You take away that game, the Bills might actually secretly look like the best team in football right now, like just absolutely killing teams. But then again, they beat the Raiders in Washington, so it might not be saying much. But they definitely look like a top 5 team to me right now.
They definitely had back-to-back get right games,
Yeah.
So,
yeah. But anyways, more AFC teams.
All right.
You think like the Browns, Ravens?
Are the Ravens 3-0?
I want to say they're 2-1. They just lost to the Colts.
The Ravens lost to the Colts
in overtime.
No way.
Yeah. It was a pretty bad call. There was something happened. There should have been a PI. There was a pass to Zay Flowers on 4th down or 3rd down, and the Ravens.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty
bad.
bad.
They lost to Gardner Minshew, not even Anthony Richardson. But yeah. All right, so I kind of feel like the Ravens are a lock to make the playoffs.
See, it's close.
Okay.
That division,
Maybe they're not
that division's giving me trouble. Like, I don't know who's going to come out on top of that division. Like, I still think the Bengals have a really good shot at it, but I think the Browns have a great shot at it, and I think the Ravens have a great shot at it. And now the Steelers are 2-1, and they probably have one of the better records in that division. So, or tied for first. It might be the 3 of them: Browns, Steelers, and Ravens.
2-1. Crazy. I think the Browns might win that division.
I was going to say that. I was going to say I think right now, if I had to pick a team that looks the best, it's probably the Browns. Because Lamar Jackson hasn't been consistent, and the Steelers haven't been consistent, and they got killed by the Browns. And the Bengals are probably a few plays in this Rams game for being 0-3.
Okay. So we have, 3 or 4 locks? We've got Chiefs, Dolphins, Bills.
Let's say Browns.
Browns, you think are a lock? Yeah, I would say they're looking like a lock. That defense is good.
Yeah.
I think Watson's getting more comfortable returning to football.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could definitely see maybe their season spiral out of control. Nothing. The first 3 teams, I don't see them not making the playoffs.
100%.
So let's call the next couple teams, the next 4 teams in the hunt, and we'll give more than 4 teams, but teams in the hunt: the Browns, the Ravens, the Bengals. I guess you could throw in the Steelers in the hunt.
You can, but they won't make it. Their offense won't be able to do it, I don't think.
You got the Chargers in the hunt.
To me, you can take out the Raiders and Broncos. Maybe the Raiders can squeak their way into the hunt at the end, but I don't see it right now. That's probably just me coming off of a bad loss, but I don't know. I'm looking at their schedule a second ago, and I'm like, fuck, dude, we might start we could start 1-6,
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
So here's a team. You know what? I'll give you. Okay, add that. Okay. First off, I'm going to go with the teams that aren't going to make the playoffs, okay? The Broncos and the Titans are not making the playoffs. Okay. I don't think the Raiders are making the playoffs, but there's a chance. But right now, looking at it and considering the AFC, I don't see it. The Jets are not making the playoffs. Okay. And there, 16 teams. We're going to try to find 7 that are going to make it. So we need 9 teams to not make it out of the AFC, right? Is my math correct?
There's 16.
There's 16.
Yeah,
and
so
7.
9.
So 9. So we already have 4. The Patriots, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs.
No.
I add the Steelers, so that's 7. So I need 2 more.
Yeah, so let me look at AFC teams.
Well, basically what I was getting to is the AFC South is super interesting right now because the Jaguars are playing way lower than expected, whereas the Texans just beat the shit out of them. And the Colts look like they might actually be pretty solid. Like they won't they shouldn't win a playoff game unless Anthony Richardson pulls some crazy stuff out of his ass, but they could win that division. That division is wide open.
I think they will win that division.
I still think the Jaguars should, but they need to get right quick.
Oh, yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
It's either going to be the Jaguars or the Colts, but
I also think that the Texans they're kind of a sleeper. But I don't think the Texans should make the playoffs, so I would probably add the Texans to the list of teams that won't make it, but based off of the way that they played against the Jags, I would say the Texans have the edge on the Raiders, and also they're in an easier division. So,
yeah, well, I mean, the odds are heavily stacked against the Raiders this year in the AFC. But let's get back to Raiders Chargers. Final prediction. I've got the Chargers, and then you have got the Raiders if Jimmy or O'Connell starts, and you've got the Chargers if Hoyer starts.
Correct.
Yep. So I think that's the show. Mike, this was a pretty good one, huh?
I think it was pretty darn good.
It's like they keep getting better and better.
Yeah. I don't like these Monday Night Football like doubleheader things that they have going on, where one starts an hour after, and you like keep flipping back and forth to the other game. I'm hoping that starting next week it's just gonna be one game. But my point to this is, if it's like a really good game or like really important to one of our fantasy matchups, we'll probably usually start after the Monday night games. But if it's like kind of a snore fest or has no effect on us, I feel like we should try to start the pods at like 7 or something. And usually I would think we'd get done within an hour and a half. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we definitely will see how it goes. Everyone, thank you for tuning in, and hope everybody has a great night. And go Niners,
go Raiders. Either just win, baby, or
just tank, baby.
Just tank, exactly.